Thank you for coming along. And here we are, the Southampton support group, and our special guest today is Sylvan Mason. You'll remember when we had Keith Skues here a couple of weeks ago, Keith was talking about his time out on the Mia Amigo, and that Sylvan came out to promote her single, and because the weather turned and the tender left, she actually ended up stranded on the Mia Amigo for a weekend, and she was one of the only females in the 1960s to actually spend overnight on board it. So Sylvan has very kindly come along tonight to talk about her experiences on the Mia Amigo that weekend, and also some of the other things she's accomplished in her life, which she'll tell you about later on. So I'll hand you over to Sylvan. She's got some notes that she actually wrote it using a piece of Radio Nord notepaper that was presented to her by Tony Blackburn and Keith Skues, that she still has, but she's typed them up tonight, so she's going to read out her notes. And feel free to ask any questions as we go along.
Fellow supporters of Caroline, and I'm delighted to give you my story. And when I was looking for things to bring with me, I came across these notes, which in a very rather childish handwriting. They were written 44 years ago. I was 21 years old, and I'm not long out of boarding school. I've got no idea about anything. But they were very exciting days. It was 1965, and the Pirates just started. I think we're going about a year, Caroline. And I'd made a record called We Don't Belong. I'd been sort of plucked from the Gioconda coffee bar by somebody. Anyone could make a record in those days if you had a gimmick. And mine was a sort of rather dark. I like to think I was the English Sylvie Vartan, who was always dressed in black and crying and depressed. That was my gimmick. And anyway, we wrote this song which was designed to be banned by the BBC, because in those days, if you were banned by the BBC, you had an instant hit. And unfortunately, several other people got on the bandwagon that week. A lot of records were banned. Eve of Destruction, Barry Maguire came out. About nuclear bombs, that was banned. I think Twinkle had one out, and that was banned. And there were several banned that week. So unfortunately, as I was the newcomer on the block, mine didn't make much publicity. And the record eventually, we stopped making it because it was banned. But dear old Radio Caroline, while it was still available, took me on, and I was in their charts, and I went out for a promotion. And I just thought I'd read you these notes that I found. So this is sort of what happened that day. Taking with me an extra sweater, unlike all these miniskirts you see in the film. It's jolly cold out there. An extra sweater, scarf and a comb, passport in hand, wearing blue hipsters, t-shirt and blue boating blazer. I set off in a taxi at 7:30 a.m. on a Saturday morning in October at Fenchurch Street Station, where I was to meet Richard Swainson, who would escort me to Radio Caroline. Little did I realise that I would not be returning for nearly 2 days, during which time I would have the most fantastic time of my life, which I will never forget. I was 21. I was on my way to the Mia Amigo pirate ship, 3 miles out at sea from the Essex coast, for a brief visit to meet the disc jockeys and introduce my record, which had entered their Hot 65 at number 57. The train from London pulled into Harwich Station, where there was a terrific breeze blowing. When I got onto the tender that does a ferry service between the pirate ships Radio Caroline and Radio London, the captain was very pessimistic about our chances of being able to board the Caroline ship, as he thought it was too rough, but eventually we decided to chance it. Crossing to the Mia Amigo took about another 3 hours, very rough, and we finally arrived at 12:30. I clambered on board, went immediately to introduce my record, We Don't Belong, which had recently been banned by the BBC because of its Romeo and Juliet theme on the Sounds of the 60s show. This was followed by lunch, which consisted of what the boys called gunge soup. I forgot that. gunge soup, some kind of gunge stew, and blancmange for pudding. Then we went down to the library to relax until the tender returned. The weather grew worse and worse, and with my manager's words in my ear, "Don't come back on the tender, it will make a good publicity story." I locked myself in one of the lavatories just before it arrived and refused to come out. The tender waited for as long as it could, blowing a loud whistle, or a sort of foghorn thing, I think it was. Several of the DJs and crew tried to coax me out of the loo, but eventually gave up, and the tender left without me. I emerged from the lavatory and went to apologise to the captain, who was a stern Dutchman. Because, you know, the captain was in charge, they were all frightened of him, you know, the captain and the crew were the bosses, and there were a lot of schoolboys putting the records on, but they were quite serious about it all. They wouldn't have had any of those dolly birds on board. We did have some booze though, we weren't meant to, but we did. The boys were thrilled that I'd stayed, and were broadcasting non-stop about their stowaway. That evening I watched Thank Your Lucky Stars on TV with the ones who were not on air or working, a TV pop programme which I had appeared on not long before with Ken Dodd and others. After that I went to the studio and sat in with Roger Gayle for his Party Time show. He's now an eminent MP, as I expect you all know. I've had a note from him. I had a copy of the tape that he made, and I was bits of me in the background. It's all terribly embarrassing. But I digitalised it and I sent him a copy. And he's written to me on House of Commons notepaper. He's saying, "It's very nice to have it, but excruciating." I've got it here if anyone wants to see it. And I think he had a bit of a crush on me actually, they were all teasing him. After this I went to the studio and sat in with Roger Gayle for his Party Time show. He was being teased by everyone throughout it. And at some point took his shirt off. I can't remember why. They used to do sort of silly things, you know. Then stayed with Tony Blackburn, who was on till midnight. After this, we all had a party, and I wrote in my diary, "Got tight, bed 3:30. On my own, I hasten to add to say. I was given a double bunk room to myself, which two of the boys had vacated for me, and someone had written on the door, "Ladies only, unfortunately." On Sunday I wrote, "Lovely day, up 11:30, lunch 12, did Star Verdict show live with Tony for half an hour. I think I was the mystery guest on something as well. 12:30 to 1, went up to the bridge, sat on the deck in the sun. A plane flew over 3 times, a pleasure boat came out, signed autographs. I was offered a ride and a water skiing, but not allowed to do so. 5:30 supper, went on bridge to get, because the tender wasn't coming back till Monday, you see, I was there for the whole weekend. Went on bridge to get new ideas for Tony's show with Tony, Roger and Bob. Watched beautiful sunset, talked to Mike, that was made records. Last thing I closed down the show. On behalf of the captain, crew, Tony, Roger, Mike, Bob and child scientist, this is Sylvan wishing you all a very good night. Good night. Then that music came on. On Monday, we made a tape recording of stuff for Tony's show from 8 till 10:30. I helped Roger with a couple of songs he was writing. We talked and smoked on the bridge till the tender came to take me home. And that was it really. Somewhere on the boat is written, "In Memoriam, Sylvan, and 2 days when she belonged to us." That's it.
That's probably still written there to this day.
Yes, I don't know something. Gives you a little taste of what it was. I'm sure you've heard it all before, but well, not from my experience because no one else did that.
No, indeed. Excellent. Okay.
So what happened to you after that?
The record didn't make it. I'd by now met Barry Mason, who was to become my husband. And he wasn't too keen on me making any more records. I started writing with him. He was hot writing at the time. he'd had Here It Comes Again was his first big hit. And then while I was engaged to him, I helped him to write Delilah, and Love Grows Where Rosemary Goes was another one. I wrote about 60% of the lyric of that. In Bed with Flu, Tony McCauley and Barry insisted on me helping them, and I was really quite ill, but we finished it in about 2 hours. That one and Delilah the lyric took about 2 hours. I had a few little records. Freddie Breck recorded a couple of songs. I wrote about 35 songs of my own, and married Barry, and really sort of went into being a mother, and then we divorced. And I wanted to get away from the music business after that, and I went into photography, and I became a photographer. I wanted to do something that I could include my daughter in, because I'd had a long fight to get her to become pregnant, and so she was very special, and I knew there wouldn't be another chance for a child. So I wanted to do something that would include her, and photography and other people's children seemed to be a good idea. It started out that way and it went off in different directions. So,
And what are you doing now?
I'm still a photographer.
Right.
Work's a bit thin on the ground at the moment because of the recession, but I'm still a photographer, and I've been promoting my father's involvement with Thunderball.
Oh, right.
He was
Could you tell us a bit more about your father's involvement with James Bond?
Yes. There's a lot of rip-off stories in my family. And poor old Dad, this is a complicated tale, this. I'll try and keep it as short as I can, but in 1959, 7 of the Fleming books had become a very popular series. But unbelievably, none of them were considered suitable for a film. Not one of them. They were all turned down by the film studios as being too violent, sadistic, misogynistic, just not the flavour of the day, which was kitchen sink drama, Saturday night, Sunday morning, that type of thing. They've been turned down. However, an Irishman called Kevin McClory, who had been working with Mike Todd and made another small film called Boy on the Bridge, believed that there should be a movie series, and he continued with that. And through another colleague of his, he met Fleming, and Fleming at that time was tired of Bond. He said he wanted to kill him off. He hadn't got another idea to come up with the Daffodils, because a new book always came out in March. And he wanted to go off and travel. His wife thought it was trash. And he was just about to finish. It would have just stayed as probably a very good series of books. But Kevin pursued the idea of making a film, and he got Fleming's permission to use the character of James Bond, but to write a film especially for the screen, not using any of the books. And my father, who was a leading English-British screenwriter, who'd been with the English studios, was employed to write a story using the character of James Bond around the theft of 2 atom bombs, which was Thunderball. And he worked on that screenplay long hours in his study. McClory would come and have story conferences. They would occasionally go and see Fleming and tell him how it was getting on. They would send him drafts. There were about 10 drafts in all. And at the end of that, when he produced the screenplay, he'd modified the James Bond character into someone who was now palatable for the screen. A bit more of a suave character than in the books. And he'd done a very good screenplay. Fleming had tried to write a screenplay but couldn't. There's a certain way of writing visually, and Fleming was wonderful at descriptions and wordy things, but he couldn't. I've got a couple of his attempts at the screenplay. He'd abandoned that, but my father did a fabulous job on it. And they were sending Fleming drafts of it, and so Fleming at some stage had shown it to Saltzman and Proctor. What happened was they got nervous about Kevin being the producer, because his first film had bombed. He was wildly over budget, and they'd been showing it to other people, and that's where Swordsman Broccoli came in. And then suddenly, you know, my father's screenplay was pivotal in the interest that was suddenly taken in making film. And the first film was Thunderball. The first screenplay was Thunderball. However, Fleming, who was being encouraged to write another book at that time, who hadn't got an idea in his head, eyes fell on this screenplay, and he made a very silly mistake, which was to bring out Thunderball as a book based on 220 pages of my father's screenplay without giving him any credit for it, or Kevin McClory, who owned the rights. And so Kevin took him to court and won the case against Fleming for plagiarism. McClory had won the rights to Thunderball to make the film through the court case. By now, 3 other films had been made because they'd got the format now. They'd made Dr. No, they'd used the books now with that winning format. And so Thunderball came out as the 4th. It was going to be the 4th. McClory didn't own the rights to the theme, which John Barry written. He didn't own the rights to the opening sequence with the gun. So he had to go into production with Swordsman Broccoli and into that band. So at least we put Dad back on that. He's part.
Can you tell us how we can get hold of your record? It's been sold on various sites and it's available, isn't it now?
Yes, it's, well, you can download it from iTunes. It's downloadable if you search We Don't Belong Sylvan. It's also on, I'll do a quick plug, it's on Amazon on 2 compilation discs. One is Dream Babes Volume 3, which are all 60s girls. There's Julie Driscoll, Samantha Just, Julie Sinclair, Cheryl Sinclair rather, all sorts of people. It's on that. That came out about 8 years ago. And then it's also on Girl Group Sounds Lost and Found by Rhino, who, that's that one, sorry, who've done rather nice. This actually was nominated for 2 Grammy Awards for Best Packaging and Historical Content.
Packaging of that is quite amazing for a CD collection. It's more like a box of
All
chocolates.
CDs, all like compacts and they've got mirrors in them and things. And then this is a book about all the artists. I'm in there between Dusty Springfield and Madeline Bell. A dangerous place to be. But it's a nice little book. So then that came out about 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm actually getting some royalties for this, I can't believe it. About £46, I think, the last one. Don't mind.
So do you plan to write a book?
Yes. I'm actually doing one at the moment because 3 years ago I had breast cancer, which I've survived, clearly. I'm all clear at the moment. And I kept an internet blog going through that experience, which I called a light-hearted romp through. I know I'm making fun of a very serious subject, but the thing is that for many women, early stage breast cancer is very, very curable now, very curable. And there are a lot of positives to what I went through, and I wouldn't have missed it actually, for the things that I've learned. And so I kept a diary of, how to keep cheerful and what to do to help yourself and so on. And they want me to put that into a book. But to add other things I've survived other things.
The North Sea.
The North Sea.
And like with Tony Blackburn.
Yes.
Yeah. He wasn't interested in me actually. In those days he was a bit of an idol. He was, funny to say that now, but he got a mop top like the Beatles, and big blue eyes, and he was sort of a little shy. Well, he looked shy, but he wasn't really, I don't know. Anyway, no, he was sort of, and he was a star, But, and I was quite excited to be on the boat with Tony, but he wasn't interested in me at all. Roger Gayle was, the others were, but he was very friendly and nice,
Who was the child scientist then? I
Patrick
remember him.
yes.
Can you tell us something about him?
Yes, he was a lovely character. He was one of the technicians He came to the 45 reunion. In fact, I hadn't seen him for years. I met him on board. His name was Patrick Starling. He was sort of public school boy, very young. He used to blush a lot. He had red hair, and he used to blush. They were always teasing him about blushing. And they called him the child scientist because he was a sort of real whiz at all these technical. They needed someone to work all the machinery and when things went wrong, you know. There was the captain and the crew who were in charge of the ship, and there were the disc jockeys, and then there were some technicians. And Patrick was one of those. He was only 20-something. We were all very, very young. And he was very sweet to me when I was on board, and it was his cabin that was vacated. He was just very sweet and nice, and we became friends. And in fact, he came afterwards and became a flatmate in London. He took a room in my flat. It was a wonderful tenancy because he was only there 1 week in 3. The rest of the time he was on the boat. He paid for each week. And he brought the most amazing record collection. He brought, you know, they all had given records left, right, centre. He brought all his records, and I had about 3 long shelves of records that he brought over. And yes. And he's still around, he's married. I think he lives in Lincolnshire or so. Well, he's got a place in London, I think. He's doing something else now.
Did you actually say who else was on the ship with you at the time? Tony Black?
Tony Black, Roger Gayle, Mike Allen, and someone
Was
called
that
Bob.
Mike Ahern? Mike Allen.
Well, I may be wrong about that. I've got a postcard I couldn't find. He had dark curly hair and thick glasses.
That sounds like Mike Ahern.
Yeah, because you mentioned earlier that he passed away. Mike Ahern passed away about 3 or 4 months ago.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
He was. I didn't get to know him as much as I did the others, but I know he had dark hair, smiley face, and sort of quite curly, sort of greased hair, and these dark rimmed glasses. That was Mike Ahern.
That could have been Mike Ahern, yeah. I think was Mike Ahern Canadian?
Born in Liverpool.
He was born in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Maybe just.
He spent a lot of time in Australia.
It was maybe Australia.
Yeah, that rings a bell. I didn't get to know him as well as the others. And there was a Bob, but I can't remember who that was. It was really Tony, Roger, and Patrick that I was only there for 36 hours. So.
Yeah.
And they were all real gentlemen then?
Yes, they were. Yeah, no hanky-panky.
We thought we were going to hear something more exciting.
No, but we did get a bit plastered. But no, we were very innocent days in those days, really. I mean, we were, we got up on the bridge to smoke, and there was no drinking during the day. Somebody obviously found some for that party, but I don't think we were meant to have it on board. No, there was a lot of flirting and teasing, but no, I'm sorry to disappoint.
You had a note put on your door.
On the door, yes. Ladies only, unfortunately.
Did you feel perfectly safe on board with sort of 15 young men?
Yes, I did. Oh, I loved it.
Being the centre of
They gave
attention.
me, I hadn't realised I was going to do this. I hadn't realised I would pluck up the courage to do it, so I hadn't taken any makeup, because, I've got the dusty Springfield eyes and the eyelashes and everything. So I hadn't got anything to take this stuff off with, so they gave me some Axel wigs. Which was alright though. And no, it was a really nice atmosphere. I just felt very excited to be there. I mean, this was, it was so exciting. It was right at the beginning.
And what kind of reaction did you get from your friends and family when you got back home? Because obviously, were they worried about you being stranded out there for the weekend, or when you didn't come back on the train?
No, they knew where it was.
Yeah.
Knew where there was a piece in one of the papers about marooned with 15 men. I've got that here as well. No, they thought it was rather cool, It was.
Yes, and the fact that you can remember it and other people can remember it 45 years later is an indication how significant it was.
Would you do it now?
I would actually,
Yeah.
but since I've had the cancer, I'll do anything. Anything anyone asks me, well, just about, I will do.
Yeah.
Because of I wouldn't put anything off anymore. Yes, I would do.
Yeah, I would get the Ross out of you.
Roland invited her out this weekend.
I-
Are you really good at painting?
But I mean, we were talking earlier, perhaps one day, sort of next summer or something.
I'd
we've got
love to. I
broadcast
would
weekend.
love to. I would love
Yeah,
to do that.
if we're doing a 60s or 70s show from a ship or something.
Yeah, I would love to do that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. And when the movie came out this year, Boat
Yeah.
and Rocks, did you know anything of, I mean, presumably you've been out of touch completely with Caroline for
Yes.
30 years.
Yes.
And then suddenly this year you got invited to the 45th anniversary, the movie came out.
Yeah.
Did you suddenly find there was a lot of interest rekindled in the swinging 60s and everything that had happened?
Yes.
And did people remember you as being a singer?
Yes. Yes, they did.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes, I'm on the Radio Caroline Hall of Fame page.
Right, yeah.
And
You weren't getting stopped from Tesco's for your
No,
autograph?
no. But friends all think it's very cool.
Right, yes, because you
And
must
of
have a
course
lot
my granddaughter.
of... Right, yes, yeah.
Very impressed.
Yes, because you must have friends and your granddaughter who don't know nothing about this whatsoever and that you were a singer.
She said, "Are you going on Top of the Pops?" Yes, now I'm a very cool granny. There's not many grannies who've got 2 records out.
No.
Yeah. More questions?
Anyone?
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming along.
Can you just give your website address for your heart, your
Oh, yes.
breast cancer?
Yes.
For the blog?
You said you've got a website.
Blog, yes.
Yeah.
Well, if you go to my website, which is www.sylvanmason.com, and on the home page there's a little blue tab which says the cancer card, and that's the name of it, the cancer card. And you click on that, you'll go through to the website of the what I kept for 2 years, and I'm enlarging on that for a book because they want me to go through other challenges in a positive way that I've been through. So, but the cancer experience is there.
Do you have any idea of what kind of time frame you're looking at for your book coming out?
No, I don't. I'm meant to be writing it now and I'm procrastinating, but perhaps after Christmas I'll set it down. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming along. I'm sure we'll all enjoy the event.
It's a great pleasure.